Today I'm making a French onion tart from Alsace. The Flammkuchen I shared a few months ago actually originated in Alsace as well, where it's known as tarte flambée. I came across this recipe in one of my French cookery books by the wonderful Elizabeth David. What I love about this onion and cream tart is how simple it is, really just pantry ingredients, and yet it feels quite special. I've made it several times now, but I've never actually tasted it myself. So today I finally do, because in this video I also make a gluten-free version and it works beautifully. So I've been reading up a lot about pastry and I think I'm getting better at it. So this is 4 ounces of flour, just all-purpose flour, which I weighed in at 115 grams, and just sieve that into a bowl and make a little bit of a well in the centre. Then add a good pinch of salt, 2 ounces of butter, which I've just cut up really small, and that weighs 55 grams, and 1 whole egg. Now this part should be done as quickly as you can, but it's not difficult. So using your fingertips, bring it all together. Now you may need just a little water, because the less water the better. So that's like a half a teaspoon. Just enough so the mixture comes away from the sides of the bowl. And that's enough. Lightly flour your surface, just lightly, you don't want too much flour. And then take that dough out. And this is the trick. Then just grab a piece of it, put it down, and flour just the heel of your hand here, because the palm is too hot. And little by little just smear it forward and put it aside. Grab another little bit, using the heel, push it forward. Join it up. Another little bit, using the heel, push it forward. And this sort of smooches the butter into the flour. Forward. Just little by little. And this is the rest of it. Forward. And do that one more time. And that's it. Now form it into a ball. And that's your pastry. And this needs to go in the fridge for a minimum of 2 hours, because what that does, it prevents the pastry from shrinking when I go to cook it. And put that in the fridge for 2 hours at least. Now have a clean up and try the gluten-free one. And you know what I read? That cold water, not hot water, is the best to remove any pastry from your bench. And I'm just using regular gluten-free flour, the same amounts of everything. And it'll be interesting to see if it turns out. The butter, the egg, the salt and the flour. And just maybe a half a teaspoon of water. Maybe a little bit more. Gluten-free flours can be more absorbent. Just a little bit of gluten-free flour on the bench. And the same as before, just using the heel of my palm. I'll get a little bit of mixture and push it forward. Gather that up and do that one more time. And you don't want to introduce too much flour on your workbench. Just a little bit, lightly, because that will change the ratio of the flour to butter. Okay, that should come together now in a ball. I'll try and get the dough off my fingers. And I'll also put that in the fridge for 2 hours. I'll clean up the mess and I'll work on the filling, because The filling needs to cool down before you put it on the pastry. So for the filling, you'll need 1.5 pounds of onions, which weigh around about 700 grams. And you want to peel these and slice these as thinly as possible. And at work, I use a food processor, but at home, it's easier for me just to peel them and slice them because my food processor is on the way out. And once you've done that, then you go over to the stove. Now in a heavy based pan on the stove, place 2 ounces, which is about 55 grams of butter, and a little oil, just to cover the base. And once that butter is melted, or almost melted, tip in the onions. The recipe says you must not fry these. The goal here is just to soften them, and they will be a really pale golden colour, not brown. And so once you coat them all in butter, put on the lid, and over a low heat, I sweat these now and cook them, and this will take about 30 minutes. And check on them every now and then to make sure they're not sticking to the bottom and to give them a stir. So this has been 30 minutes now. And the onions have softened and they're a lovely golden colour. Not golden brown, but like golden yellow. And they're ready. Now season well with cracked black pepper, as much as or as little as you like. Some salt. You know, you could always serve salt and pepper with it. And a little grated nutmeg. Now nutmeg is really strong. So probably about 1/4 teaspoon. And into this, the recipe says a good 1/4 pint of cream, heavy cream, and that equates to about 150 mils, which is a 1/2 cup Australian plus 2 tablespoons or thereabouts. And you'll need 3 large egg yolks. So you don't need the whites, just the yolks. And because the onions are still warm, slowly add these, stirring well, so you don't get scrambled eggs. And now this mixture needs to come to room temperature because you never put hot fillings into a cold pastry. So I'll leave that until the pastry is ready to roll out. And then it's just a matter of baking it. That's for my gluten-free. The onions are nearly ready. And if you're a bit nervous about adding the egg yolks to the hot onions, just leave them cool for 10 minutes and then add them. Now the recipe actually calls for an 8-inch tart tin or flan tin, but I've got a 9.5-inch one here. And I've also made it in quite a bigger one, and it also works. What it does say is to grease the tin. So I'll start with the gluten-free one, so I don't cross-contaminate. Now I have a feeling that this won't roll out well. And yep, this gluten-free one, I thought that would be the case. It's not rolling out. But that's okay, because what I do instead when I make any gluten-free pastry is I press it in, and that usually works. And this tart tin is much bigger than the recipe suggests, which means this pastry will be super thin. And my filling's not quite room temperature, and it doesn't hurt to put this back in the fridge and let it harden up a bit. And now for the regular one, just using regular flour. So the recipe says to roll it out as thin as you can. And now I just carefully roll it around the rolling pin and roll it back on the tart tin. Beautiful coloured pastry with the egg yolk, well, with the egg and all that butter. and a small amount of flour. And using the heel of your hand again, just press it in. And I'm going to pop this back in the fridge just to set up that little bit while I clean the bench. And then I'll bake it. So you'll need to put the tart on a tray and then pour over the filling, which is now cooled down. And that goes in the middle of the oven. I'm using the conventional setting of 200 degrees Celsius, which is 180 with a fan. And it should be ready in 30 minutes. So I've made this a half a dozen times and never tasted it. Today I will. And it smells delicious. Now that took 35 minutes. The recipe says serve it very hot. I like to leave it 10 minutes just to let it all settle before I slice it. When I make any pastries, I always just leave the base on. It cuts easy. And this is very hot. Slice is lovely though. And the pastry is just so thin, and I think that's the lovely part about this tart. And that's a gluten-free one. And because we love condiments, I'll just put a little sprinkle of salt on the top, a little bit of homemade mayonnaise, and a little bit of tomato relish. That's very yum, hey mate?
Very yum.
And you know, really quite easy. And it even tastes delicious, gluten-free. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. Hopefully I'll see you again soon.